Hi there, and welcome to this webinar, Creating a Roadmap to Working Capital Acceleration within Source-to-Pay by PRGX. It's no secret that one of the primary goals in today's business landscape is to maximize working capital and obtain cash on hand. By implementing a self-funding audit program, businesses can leverage data, often resulting in risk mitigation and cost reduction, bringing value back to their bottom line. However, common challenges continue to persist in both finance and procurement functions, including misaligned objectives, budget limitations, and difficulties with cross-departmental buy-in. This webinar outlines the roadmap to working capital acceleration, using synergies across the source-to-pay cycle, exploring the fastest path value for businesses given the current economic climate, while also providing recommendations for mid-term cost savings planning. Attendees will be introduced to the PRGX three-pillar approach to maximize return on investment: recovery audit and root cause analysis, payment terms, and days payable outstanding optimization, along with contract compliance recovery and prevention. So before we begin, I'll cover off some housekeeping items. Firstly, if you have any questions as we move throughout the webinar, or if you're having trouble hearing us, please let us know in the question box. And be sure to follow up on our social channels, LinkedIn and Twitter, by searching PRGX Global. So to get started today, I'd like to introduce our presenters. John Highway is the VP of Business Development in the UK and Europe. After a career in finance, John has been a leader in the UK recovery audit industry for over 20 years. He's passionate about delivering solutions that add value to our clients' businesses and has experienced global complex organizations in both retail and commercial environments. Vijay Parekh is the Senior Director of Delivery for Contract Compliance in the EMEA region. Having been in the industry for over 18 years, he has a wealth of experience and expertise running many audits and projects for large clients globally across many different vertical sectors. And finally, Bal Matu, Audit Director for PRGX, has worked in the recovery audit industry for 22 years. He's experienced in the delivery of profit recovery audits in a variety of industry sectors. So now I'll hand over to John.
Thank you, Ashley. Okay, so welcome to everyone today, and thank you for showing interest in our webinar. As we mentioned, the agenda today is around creating a roadmap to working capital acceleration within Source-to-Pay. We will show you how you can, 1, accelerate cash across Source-to-Pay, 2, how a three-pillar approach can deliver the fastest path to value, 3, how to supercharge your results from synergies between the 3 pillars, 4, a look at some actual case studies, and finally, some key takeaways from today. So, in my role, I talk to many CFOs and CPOs about their challenges in the current environment. What is common in today's world isn't too much different to what was common at the back end of 2019. Everyone wants to improve their working capital, generate more margin, and improve cash flow. Today, we're going to look at how your organization can benefit from leveraging a three-pillar approach across Source-to-Pay. So what are some of the challenges businesses are facing today? During normal times, as I said, most businesses focus on improving working capital, reducing costs, and maximizing profitability. No surprises there. We probably all want to improve liquidity in the short term and de-risk for the longer term across Source-to-Pay. And COVID-19 hasn't necessarily changed that outlook, but it has accelerated the thinking on multiple streams of activity and transformation necessary to allow businesses to adapt and thrive in today's environment. What we want to discuss today is how you can drive more value in a shorter time frame by utilizing the synergies in a three-pillar approach to accelerate liquidity and working capital in your organization by focusing on 3 main areas: accounts payable, DPO or days paid outstanding, and your contractual relationships with your suppliers. So if we look at cash acceleration across Source-to-Pay, which we like to call a fast track to cash, how can we do that, and what do we mean by a three-pillar approach? I'll go into more detail on the following slides, but for now we're talking about the following 3 periods. Firstly, a review of all accounts payable transactions to identify incorrect payments made and unreconciled amounts on statements that are due back to you. Secondly, a program of forensic audits of selected suppliers to identify overcharges relating to contract terms and conditions. And finally, a detailed review of actual payments versus agreed terms and modeling to explore how you can increase working capital by optimizing DPO. And really the true highlight here is that adopting the three-pillar approach is what we like to call the fast track to value. There are clear synergies that can be gained by adopting this approach, such as the data required to perform each review and cross-functional stakeholder engagement. Adopt this approach and the value should start to be realized within 30 to 60 days. So let's focus on each pillar in a bit more detail. So pillar 1, accounts payable transactions. Every business processes thousands to millions of transactions every year, and inevitably some of those transactions are incorrectly paid. Our experience points to an error rate of between 0.02% and 0.08% of spend. Outputs from this review include cash back to the business, which is always a good thing, with the first results within 30 to 60 days, an uplift to the bottom line on the P&L, and crucially, actionable insights to highlight where processes can be improved. This is the foundation of our three-pillar approach, and the data required to perform this review will provide a base for each of the three pillars. Insights from this review will also feed into our DPO modeling and contract compliance reviews. I can see I have a question already, and the question is, we are busy with a list of transformation projects. How much will this impact our resources day to day? And I think I'll hand that to Bal to answer.
Yeah, thank you, John. And obviously, good afternoon, good morning, everybody that's actually listening to the webinar. The simple answer to the question is it's a very minimal involvement. We're highly experienced in terms of undertaking such reviews, right from acquisition of data to understanding how to manipulate, process, and identify anomalies which lead to obviously value. So, you know, it could range from possibly a half-hour phone call just to establish some fact find, through to maybe once a week in terms of reporting and process improvement feedback. But essentially, I want to emphasize it's a minimal involvement because obviously our experience in delivering such reviews across, you know, various different industries. But essentially, the reason why we can minimize that involvement because we have a very established fact find, and that saves time. It helps us establish touch points within your business. But the goal for us is really what's more important for the businesses out there. Essentially, that's around sensitivity in terms of approaching suppliers and obviously quantifying, you know, exposure that your business would have. So it's you know, we have a very established process in terms of how we plan, how we execute and deliver these audits. And the reason why we can do that, because we know what we're targeting, we know the questions that are most important for our clients and us, and that's the reason why we can minimize that involvement up front and make it a much more efficient and seamless process.
Thank you, Bal. I hope that answers the question. So if we moved on to the second pillar, leading on from the accounts payable review, the same data you aggregated will enable you to review when you are actually paying your suppliers versus the terms you have agreed with them. This will enable you to do two things. Number one, identify unrealized discounts that you should have taken from paying suppliers early or should be taking. And secondly, use modeling to optimize your terms and generate significant realized improvement in working capital across groups of suppliers, maybe indirect and direct suppliers, or category related, or across the whole supplier base. And we have a metric that we've identified, and basically that is for every $4 billion of spend, we find on average a delta of 17 days where suppliers are being paid early across the board, and that equates to, on average, a 25% uplift in working capital. And effectively, that's like lending your vendors $1 billion interest-free for 17 days. That equates to 47 million in working capital that you could recapture and $2.8 million in cost of capital saved using a 6% rate cost of money. And this, I've seen this in action. This can be very effective, and it's a really interesting view and a really good tool that our clients can use. So pillar 3 is contract compliance. Most of our clients progress to this pillar after an accounts payable review because the supplier intelligence and knowledge gained from analyzing the data received for the AP review provides a really good pointer as to which suppliers and which contracts should be prioritized for review. This is a really deep dive into whether suppliers are charging as per your contract, which you probably invested significant time in negotiating. The purpose of each review is to ensure compliance to contract terms and conditions and to ensure that you are getting full value from operation of the contract. Once you've selected suppliers for review, we would suggest targeting 10 to 15 audits for the first wave. Senior executive sponsorship is important, as involvement may be required from procurement and finance and other departments. Once again, we're conscious that the businesses have little bandwidth currently, and that's why we would employ our in-house planning and coordination team to help project the management of audits through to completion. And I can see another question. Good to get questions. Which stakeholders would we need to engage to implement a new program of contract audits, and what are the biggest challenges and how do you overcome them? And I'll hand that one off to VJ.
Thanks, John. Welcome everybody to this webinar. Thanks for the question. As John mentioned, involvement from procurement and finance is key. However, to ensure even better audit success and recovery optimization, we see that having senior stakeholders from the operations or the business need to be brought in pre-audit or at the earlier stage, meaning that there's full alignment from all key stakeholders and everyone's aligned on the objectives for the working capital acceleration program. The other couple of points I could mention is for establishing a program, we'd recommend a ramp-up approach in that we jointly select the best candidates for audit. And then, since there are many factors to consider other than just the spend alone. Typically, we start with a shortlist of about 10 to 15, as John mentioned, to assess, with a view to auditing perhaps maybe 4 or 5 of those as a first wave, and then building on these as the program establishes itself within your organization. The methodology we use is robust and designed to be light touch. The typical challenges or concerns around time, what is required to support the initiative are minimized. However, delivery of maximum value in terms of financial assurance and future insights and contract improvement opportunities are benefited from the organization.
Thank you, Vijay. Thanks. Okay, so let's just focus on the synergies across source to pay for a minute. As you've heard, there's a really strong link across all the pillars, and that is the foundational data that we collect up front. Once you have that data, you can drive the value curve upward pretty quickly. Results can be, as we said, as quick as 30 days. And once the value begins to flow in, stakeholders quickly become champions and facilitators. No surprise there. And then another question we have is what data are you talking about specifically? And I can share that on the next slide. So here we've got, I guess, the measures that will ensure that we get success and how we execute each review. As we discussed a minute ago, data is the foundation, and the investment up front will lead to a strong return over the 3 pillars. At each level, we use the data to identify insights and value. The core data being the vendor master file and also the AP transaction detail. By making a few tweaks to this core data, we can incorporate payment terms and get access to the contracts database, which really enables all 3 solutions to be more self-sufficient to a significant degree. And I'm going to ask Bal, who's one of our SMEs, in terms of just choosing 2 items, Bal, why is it important to have an email address and ERP system access for audits that we performed previously?
Sure. Thank you, John, for the question. So essentially, for us, the most important thing, obviously, is making sure that we're sensitive to your ongoing relationships with your supply base. You know, we understand that these suppliers are conducting business as usual activity, so we want to make sure that we can add value to the business and minimize any involvement in terms of your time and mitigate, for example, anything. So essentially, having an email address, it allows us to have much more effective and transparent communication. That's both communication externally with your suppliers and also internally with any key stakeholders, especially when we're providing feedback on process improvement and obviously the results of the reviews that we deliver. Essentially, we also find in our experience in this industry, if we're utilizing an email address which is aligned to your organization, we get much more supplier engagement. We get better response rates and also therefore much better results. I think the way to kind of view a delivery of this service is very much it's an extension of your accounts payable team, so that makes it much more seamless in terms of what we're delivering and also how we engage with your suppliers as well. So that's the reason why having an email address it's very, very important for us, but it definitely gets better results. Essentially with an ERP system, so obviously the main sort of the crux is to identify any opportunities in terms of recoveries and highlight those anomalies and actually see them through to proper due diligence checks. So having a read-only access to, for example, an accounts payable system, it allows us to validate anything we find. Obviously, we do and highly experienced in processing large amounts of data and identifying opportunities within that data. But data is obviously finite, it's fixed at a point in time. So having that live read-only access, it enables us to look for any post-data corrections, any adjustments, and so therefore the quality assurance in terms of what we are then liaising with your suppliers is much more targeted and it's much more robust. It can also influence the method of recovery, so that if we've got access to an accounts payable history for a particular supplier, we know what the big picture is today in terms of the status of that account, what the balance is, and that can influence how we negotiate with that supplier in terms of recovering any monies that are due back. But so essentially, a combination of having email addresses and obviously read-only access enhances the delivery and makes sure that we can add value much more quickly. So that's essentially a job.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. Okay, so let's just summarize some of the benefits of the three-pillar approach. We're looking to, help organizations generate bankable cash and working capital in the shortest possible time frame, and that's a very popular discussion at this moment in time. We're looking to assess accuracy and diligence of the current payment process and compliance of suppliers to existing contracts and agreements, and also looking to mitigate risks and reduce leakage in disbursement processes and supplier contracts. And this effectively is trying to establish a sustainable and effective audit program going forward, which in effect is trying to drive costs down in businesses, which is what everyone wants. And then I think it's good to be able to leverage provider expertise and best practices to establish a world-class compliance program. I mean, if you look at contract compliance, we audit thousands of contracts across, a broad range of categories, and so have a lot of experience and expertise in all categories of procurement. So let's look at some case studies from previous collaborations that we've had at PRGX. We've got 3 examples for our partnerships with a consumer products organization, an aerospace manufacturer, and a pharmaceutical and health organization. So with the CP client, we actually began working for them solely in the UK. They wanted us to focus on an immediate need to generate cash. After the success of the first phase, we expanded geographically to deliver a global review. We visited most of the large country hubs to ensure that the stakeholders understood the process and were comfortable that we would take care of their supplier relationships. As part of the process, we delivered root cause analysis and process improvement recommendations, highlighting a significant issue on calculation and collection of large rebates. We also assisted the client on DPO and advised on contract compliance. So far, in our history with this client, we've recovered over £55 million. And that sounds a lot, but it's a drop in the ocean compared to their turnover. But £55 million is very useful in anyone's book. So if we look at the next example, which is with an aerospace manufacturer, we've been working with them since 2005. Again, this is a global audit where we've delivered savings of over £20 million back to our client. Because we had the foundational data up front, we were able to provide them with a data cleanse of the vendor master file, eliminating duplicate vendors and incorrect contact details. We also advised them on improving processes for handling large foreign currency VAT transactions and issues with the ERS self-billing system. This is a client where they have invested a lot in automation and technology over the last few years, and we've been able to provide them with the security to know that while these transformations are taking place, we're keeping an eye on the back-end process for them. Finally, we can talk about our partnership with a large pharmaceutical and health organization. This is a global audit again, where we provide a range of services under the three-pillar approach from audit to analytics. During our partnership, we've delivered over £65 million in cash back to the business. This has been involved in identification of issues with technology platforms interfacing with their ERP system, working with their offshore BPO provider, providing advice on our findings, and performing ad hoc analytics projects, including responding to the government on payment practices. We also have an extensive sole provider agreement for all contract audit services that has delivered over £17 million in cash back to the business, along with highlighting improvements to contracting. So finally, to summarize, I'd like to focus on some key takeaways. A three-pillar approach can deliver access to working capital and provide a cash P&L uplift. Stakeholder alignment is crucial in these projects, as obviously is data availability. I would say, don't always rely on automated systems. The human element of insight and experience coupled with data and artificial intelligence is the key. Equivalent programs, as you can see, that we've been running have delivered value between 10 million to 50 million over a 3-year period, and is obviously therefore definitely something that organizations should be looking at in the short term and long term. We strive to deliver these projects in the shortest time frame. I would say, use a provider with big data capabilities and a holistic approach to audit and analytics. Our investment in technology means that we can ingest significant amounts of complex raw data and process it very quickly to highlight potential value and trends, often in real time. And then it's important to you to have a provider that has experience of launching large complex programs, both in terms of ability and both in terms of minimizing your investment in these projects, and where results are required quickly without disrupting critical business activities. And then I would say that our capabilities will deliver a long-term program of continuous improvement. Make these projects an ongoing part of your organization's best practice. Your focus should be to identify and secure value, provide strategies to reduce leakage, and drive historical future value from source to pay and supplier relationships. And I would second what Bal and Vijay said earlier. I would add one more key takeaway, which is to take care of your supplier relationships, which is an obvious one, but we perform audits as a partner to our clients. We adopt their culture. We know the supplier relationships are massively important, so we take care to be very professional, very ethical, and most of all, understanding in all our communications with suppliers. Okay, so now we're going into a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them away, and I can see the first one there. The first question is there a trend for the mid-market to take advantage of these services, private equity as well? And they're two very good questions that are very current at the moment. So yes, I think there is, we talked about some big numbers with some big organizations, but there is definite desire from the mid-market to take advantage of these services. And, some of these projects can be very pressing for them. They rely on their suppliers and their contracting, their procurement and finance departments to get best value. So I would say we're seeing a lot of interest from the mid-market, and that works with us, fits well with us as well. And private equity, absolutely, yes, we have a number of alliances with some big firms out there in terms of consulting and also private equity, where we can deliver services across private equity partners and clients to their portfolio, and that is also working well for them and working well for us. Okay, I have another question now, and that's how has COVID-19 affected your delivery, and how are suppliers responding to requests for information? And yes, very topical question, and I would say, well, we work generally remotely, so it's not really affected our delivery. And I would say that suppliers are responding really well to requests for information and to investigate claims. We are giving them a little longer, obviously, because we don't want to put undue pressure in the current environment. So instead of maybe giving them 7 days to come back with an answer on a query, we might give them, a few weeks to come back. But we're really pleased, and our clients are really pleased with the way suppliers are responding. And our clients are, I guess, even more keen to secure value from the work that we're doing. I have another question, which is a good one. It says, how do you know that you can find value in any organization? And I guess the answer to that one is we've got 50 years of experience of doing exactly that. We work with all types of clients in many different sectors and geographies. We listen to our clients and what they're telling us and what they want. And I guess we ask for specific information up front. So if we're approached by a potential prospect, we know what information to ask for to assess and gauge the likely outcomes. And we can share that prior to commencement. So, if we don't see value in engagement, we'll be honest and transparent and say that. And if we do see value, we'll try and estimate what that value might be for our clients. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any more questions. I'd like to really thank you for your time today. It's been a pleasure to talk to everyone and thank the team. And I'll pass you back to Ashley now to close the webinar.
Thanks, John. Well, a big thank you to all of our presenters today, John, Vijay, and Belle. And thank you all for listening in on today's webinar. The recording will be added to the PRGX website along with our other on-demand webinars. We'd also encourage you to rate the webinar and provide any feedback in the box provided in the box below the video. And also look out for some more webinars on our PRGX Global Bright Talk channel over the coming weeks. We've got some great experts on hand to discuss some of the overlooked benefits of recovery audit, self-funding contract audit programs, plus much more. And if you'd like to know more about the solution or speak with a PRGX expert, please get in touch with us at prgx.com or marketing@prgx.com by email. So we thank you all again for joining us today.